For Creamer Media's Policy, I'm Sashni Mudli. Author Lesley Pearse joins me today to discuss her book, Dead to Me. Can you briefly describe what your book, Dead to Me, is about?
Dead to Me is about two girls that meet by chance on Hampstead Heath in London, and they're from opposite sides of the tracks. One's from a very poor background with an alcoholic mother. The other one comes from a sort of middle-class home, and they become friends, rather unlikely friends, at that particular day. But soon afterwards, everything falls apart for the other one. They're the one that's well brought up, and their situations become reversed. This is all set just before the war broke out, and of course when the war broke out, the girl that's living in London is caught in bombs and things like that. The other one is sent down to Babbacombe, which is where I live now, which is on the Devon coast and is very beautiful and was very peaceful during the war until the end of the war. It did get its share of nastiness at the end, but not in the beginning. And they remain good friends all this time, and then until something happens, and Ruby tells Verity that she's dead to her, she never wants to see her again. So that's basically the story without giving away too much. There's a villainous man in there, and various other things, and of course the backdrop of the war as well, which is scary, and Verity has been very damaged by her father. So all that has to be overcome, and will the girls get back together again? But I set it in Hither Green as well, because it's where I grew up in London, in South East London. I grew up there from 11 till I was 16, and I hated every moment of it. So I wanted to have a place that had bad memories for me, so I wouldn't start getting sentimental about it. But it was funny, when I went back to look at it again, I was surprised to find it was very more upmarket than it was when I was a girl. And I actually quite liked it then, but I didn't let myself get led astray. I kept the darkness of the place, and you know, the kind of mean streets, you know, that were when I was that age.
And what are the central themes in the book?
Well, it's really about friendship more than anything else, and how people have to overcome various problems in their lives. I mean, we all know as young girls, we have things to overcome, don't we? Traumas that we've had from when we were younger, influences from outside.
Are you trying to highlight specific issues through the book, and if so, what are they?
Well, I think the issue is really how much parents can damage children, you know, with either complete disinterest or more brutality as well. But, you know, often disinterest and just not caring about them too much is actually one of the worst things, I think, because you're like a ship without a rudder, you know, you're just drifting through life, and you're likely to get yourself in quite a lot of hot water, because if you've been brought up without much love, you go looking for it, and you probably go looking for it in the wrong places as well.
Tell us about your main characters, Verity and Ruby, and the inspiration for them.
I don't really know where the inspiration came from them. I think it's always quite attractive having two people from opposite sides of the tracks, and the differences between them, and you know how one will try and emulate the other and vice versa. In their case, they do help each other tremendously. I think that strong friendships that form when you're very young and do last never really go. I have a friend that I've known from early teens, and nothing would ever separate us. I don't think there's anything she could do that would be bad enough for me to say, "You're dead to me." But you know, never say never sort of thing. But things do happen sometimes, and Ruby is a complicated character because she's had this alcoholic mother and been dragged up, you know, and she's now, later on in the book, is in the care of a very kind woman who she really looks up to. And when a secret about her is uncovered, you know, she is so angry that Verity has told this woman about it. That's what, you know, they fall out about. But she doesn't take into consideration that the lovely woman she's staying with is very humane and would understand anyway.
This book was set during the Second World War. What was your research for this book?
Well, over the years I've done a lot of research on both the World Wars, but particularly in Hither Green, because I grew up there. My stepmother had lived there as a child herself, and I knew, you know, I was told what was hit and what was squashed. There's a very big railway there, and of course it was a prime site for the Germans because they tried to destroy all the main railway lines. So I always knew that, so I didn't really have to do much research on that because I went to school there, you know, it was all part and parcel of life, you know. But when the wartime scenes in Babbacombe later on, that was all stuff when I moved there that I just found out of interest, and there is a tragic incident at the end of the book that really happened there, and I found local people don't even know about it. A great many children killed at a Sunday school, you know, with a bomb, which is just appalling, and nobody seems to remember. There isn't even a memorial to them, which I think is terribly sad. I'm hoping to put that right.
You reference South Africa a few times in your book. Why did you pick this as one of the escape countries for your villain?
Well, back in the day, in the sort of when I was growing up, we used to hear about people rushing off to South Africa. It was just one of those places people went to. I think it's a good go-to place for anyone escaping because it's English speaking, so therefore they haven't got the language problem. And it was accessible then. I mean, a lot of South Africans came to England in the 60s. I know this was set before then. I think that there's always been something colourful and charismatic about South Africa as a place anyway. I would imagine if you were a villain, you would think, well, that was be a good place to disappear and no one would see me.
Were there alternate endings you considered?
No, not really. No. If the endings kind of write themselves, you know, you come to a point in the book where there's only one way really it can go. I don't like sad endings and leaving people hanging. I think it all should be rounded up and all the ends tucked away, really. I find it very unsatisfactory when I read a book and you're left in the air not knowing what happened to who. And
There is a recurring theme in all your books, emotional damage to children. Why is this particularly important for you to highlight?
Well, I suppose I was emotionally damaged. I lost my mother when I was 3 and I was in an orphanage until I was 6 and then was taken on by my stepmother, who was quite harsh. Having said that, as dragon as she was when I was young, without her I wouldn't have become the writer I am, because she introduced me to books and made sure we were well spoken and well educated and all that kind of thing. So I have a great deal to thank her for. But yes, there was a lot of damage. I did feel a lonely, frightened little girl a lot, which is why I do tend to have that kind of thing in the book. And I think there's more of us about than there are well-balanced, normal people who've had a perfect childhood.
Okay. And what can we expect from you in future?
Well, I'm thinking about the next book being sort of set in the early 1900s with a girl being expected to marry somebody she doesn't want to marry, and she runs off with a philandering Irishman from down the road. But don't quote me on this because I may change my mind before then. I haven't actually started it yet. Well, I've written 1 page before I came, so that is a start.
That was author Lesley Pearse discussing her book, Dead to Me.